A charging team that will not yield. And with the blue and silver wave, everybody stand into the brave. Rah, rah, rah. Go hard with the game. With honor, you will keep your faith. Down the field and gain a Lions victory. Go Lions! Welcome back to X's and Bros, live all across the great state of Michigan and in Northwest Ohio. That's Danny and Ryan. I'm Anthony. Join us on the horn right now. The coach. He did his GA years on the John B. line at the University of Michigan. He's currently on staff as the assistant for the Ohio Bobcats, and he's a Concordia alum. Our good friend, the Coach Kyle Barlow. He's a Detroiter. He's a Michigander, and he loves the Lions. How are you, Coach Barlow?
Wearing the Lions colors proudly today and yesterday down in enemy territory in Southeast Ohio. Everybody says the Bengals are the hottest team in the NFL. I said, I disagree. Look at what the Lions have done against teams who are playoff teams, right? And we went to the Hall of Fame last week because we played up at Youngstown. So we stopped at Canton to get the Hall of Fame. Had to get myself the Lions long sleeve. Wore it yesterday. I wore it Sunday, and I wore it yesterday. You know, the wifey says, you're wearing that shirt again? I said, you gosh darn right I am, because I'm wearing it to work. I'm wearing it to all the Bengals fans to see, all the Browns fans to see. Look, we're the hottest team in the league, man. Don't steal my joy. Don't steal my joy today. Give me something to celebrate. They're certainly giving us something to celebrate. What a fun team.
Oh, man, what a fun team. You're down there, like you said, Bengals country. You know, Southern Ohio, it gives me the willies. Great college town, though. Great college town.
Yeah, great college town.
And teams playing really well. And there was something that Khalif Raymond had said after Coach Campbell gave him the game ball. He had said, I didn't do this. We did this. And I think that it's very important to take a look at this Detroit Lions team, where they were at the end of the year, where they were at the end of the year last year, the beginning of the year this year, and where they're at now. There is a firm belief not only in themselves but in one another, and you can tell that they enjoy playing with each other and playing for each other, and that's something that's difficult to find, especially at the professional level.
Absolutely. You know, it's difficult to find at the college level, but at the professional level, everybody's making money, and you know that seems to be the number one thing. And you know, I hear a lot of stories in the NBA. The agents tell them, you know, their player not to expend so much energy on defense because it ain't your defense that's going to get you the next contract. So that's what you're dealing with in professional sports. And I think in football, especially the NFL, where it's a league of parity, you have to find a niche somewhere. You know, the Patriots have one of the best quarterbacks in the world, and they had elite X's and O's genius on both sides of the ball with Bill Belichick, right? That's a niche. You know, you look at the 49ers, they can run the ball. That's a niche, right? And year in, year out, no matter who the coach is, they can run the ball. I think the Lions' niche is this whole grit thing, and I really think the guys buy into it. And when you play in one-possession games, week in and week out, you need to have something that you know you're going to bring to the table every day that's going to be better than the opponent. We're not going to have the best quarterback. We're not going to have the best defense. We're not going to have the best receiving core. We're not going to have the best running backs. But you know what? We're going to have the best togetherness and the best will to win this game. And I think the guys bought into that. And isn't that a magical thing, Bellino, when you see it?
It's beautiful. It really is. And the fact that, you know, you look back the last couple of years, that kick probably goes in for the Jets. It just probably does, right? The Lions can't catch a break. And I'm always a big thing, like you make your own luck, right? Throughout what you do throughout the course of a ball game. And there were a lot of things in that ball game on Sunday that I think you really scratch your head. But really, for me and for our conversation, when it comes to building your team, right? And as we were talking about, enjoying playing with and for one another, being able to believe that you can actually do something. I want to go back to when your club took Michigan to the wire and ended up losing 70-66, and what that did for your team as far as their ability to be able to lean on something from the past and say, hey, look at something that we have done. We were right there. Building that belief, learning how to win. These are all important things I think people take for granted.
Well, multiple guys on our team, actually the two transfers that stick out who are not from winning programs who are on our team this year, came to our team because they want to be part of a winning tradition, and we've built a winning culture here, especially in the past couple of years. And they wanted to be part of that. And both of them said after that Michigan game, even in a loss, they said that was the most fun I've ever had playing basketball since I don't know when. And it was because of the belief that Coach Bowles does an amazing job of instilling belief and confidence in our guys. And then seeing that transpire on the field and on the court. Like when you see that belief that, hey, it's one thing for somebody to tell you, but it's another thing to see yourself actually doing it. And when you come from a program that's a losing program, you expect something to go wrong, right? And that's a losing mentality. Or you take plays off, or you're not mentally, but when you do all those things and you see the outcome, it's a powerful thing, and it does wonders for you. And it really seems like the Lions are at that point right now. It always makes me think of the 1-3-1 zone, and that was a John Beeline staple, especially at West Virginia, right? You got up on Pitt 22-2 because you're forcing turnovers, and it never really seemed to catch at Michigan. And I remember I think it was either Coach B or one of the assistants saying, you have to have guys that believe in that zone. We run the same zone at West Virginia that we did at Michigan. But if you don't have guys who believe in that zone and believe what you're trying to do, it's not going to work. And I think that's the same as any real culture, right? Anything you're trying to instill, any X's and O's, or any culture that you're trying to instill, you don't truly believe in it, it's not going to work. And that's the coach's job to instill that belief.
When we think about that, we think about the culture word. It's thrown around a lot, and Dan Campbell has taken some heat because of some of the rah-rah speeches that the media has gotten a hold of, and people have twisted it, and the kneecaps and this, that, and the third. But I am a firm believer in culture, and some people wanted to call him a culture coach, and whether it's true or false, I don't know. He's got a hell of an offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who's got cojones the size of boulders. Oh my, oh baby, family friendly show. But when you think about, like, that's every head coach's job. Every head coach's job is to establish a program in which everyone who comes there believes in what you are doing, and especially in the game of football, or even in basketball, because if you're playing defense and somebody's not all the way bought in, you're a second slow because you're not giving 100% effort, then the whole plate collapses. You give up 2 points.
And I think the difference, and there's two things I'm glad you brought up. The difference in, like you said, a really, really good team, which, last year our team was 9-2 in non-conference. We ended up starting 19-3, I think, overall. And we had 5 guys connected on defense. We had 5 guys who are upperclassmen who knew what we were trying to do and had been in our program is a big key. So now, if you have one guy who isn't quite sure, it's not even about being bought in, but isn't quite sure, you're not going to have success in that area, right? And it's just because you need all 11 guys on the field executing the game plan. You need all 5 guys on the court, especially on defense. Offense, you have an elite player. If you have Hunter Dickinson, you throw it into the post. He's going to make everybody else better, even if they're not, even if they don't really know where to be. But defensively, you can't have one breakout, or else good offensive teams will pick it apart. And my second point with what you brought up is I think it's so valid that it's a head coach's job to instill belief. And you do have a heck of an offensive coordinator. And Dan Campbell is very underrated as not only an offensive and defensive game planner, because he worked under Sean Payton, one of the best to do it, but also to combine that with the humility of he's giving all the credit to his assistants, which I love. But the point is, we've had this rocket scientist whiz kid supposedly as our head coach of the Detroit Lions. How much of this rocket science scheme, when you had really good players, by the way, I'm thinking of you, Darius Slay, how much of that scheme worked when nobody liked the guy, or nobody wanted to play for the guy, or nobody was really connected under the guy? We're seeing the example of the polar opposites, and I think it's fun to see it play out. And I think it's a great coaching lesson to young coaches if you look at it from a macro level.
Yeah, it really is, to walk in and pound your fist and say you're the smartest man in the room. Earning players' respect is, it goes both ways. This isn't Bobby Knight at Indiana, 40 years ago. Like this, we're in a completely new ball game where guys have to love to play for you, or it's never going to work. And I just, and some of that could be they might love to play for you, they might not be good enough, and that's okay. But as long as when they're out there, they're giving you their absolute best, and if it's a guy at the end of the day that when cut day comes around and you got to let him go, for the next season after this draft class comes in, and there's going to be some hard decisions to be made because some guys are really, they're playing for their lives. Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, they're going to have some tough conversations, and those players know, hey, at the end of the day, I gave them everything I could. It's not personal, it's business. I get that, but that's going to hurt.
Oh, no doubt. And this is business, and you're taking it very personal, right? You look at a guy like James Houston. Houston, the defensive lineman.
James Houston, yep.
James. Didn't he get cut in Hard Knocks? Am I remembering this right? I'm pretty sure he got.
He was he was a 6th rounder, but he was I think he was NFI, non-football injury list. I believe that's where he started. So with the way that works and how you're trying to compile your 53-man, but in order to elevate him, somebody had to go, right? And that's a conversation that you're elevating him. What, 8-9 games into the season? Somebody's been riding with you for a couple months, and it's like, hey, we're going this direction now. And it's like, oh, man.
And he's the first rookie, I think, in NFL history to have sack in 4 consecutive his first 4 games. I'm pretty sure I saw that stat on Twitter. And again, it's Twitter, so I might be quoting a false stat, but it's like you look at those and they're pressing all the right buttons. And it's like you look at this offensive whiz kid we're supposed to get as a rocket scientist, RIT. How'd that hook and ladder turn out for you for the last game?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, how'd that turn out? How did that play out for you? Aren't you so smart? You're just smarter than everybody here, aren't you? You're just the smartest guy alive.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that. And by the way, rookie James Houston, nickname The Problem for those, recording the sack against the Jets, his 5th in 4 games since he was brought up from the practice squad. He became the 3rd player in NFL history to record a sack in each of his first 4 games since the stat became official in 1982.
There it is. You're talking legendary stuff. You're talking Troy Weaver stuff from Brad Holmes and vice versa. It seems like all these guys are hitting. And is it Brad Holmes? Is it Dan Campbell? Is it the culture they've created? I think it has to be the whole is the sum of the parts when it comes to this, right? Kirby Joseph, for gosh sake.
I believe so. At some point, Dan can't, they're all doing their homework, and you got to trust your scouts and the staff. Brad Holmes will get all the credit, right? We'll all point to Brad Holmes, say that's the guy. But the college scouting staffs, they're the ones that are out there diving through the film, putting this guy on the radar. Hey, you need to look at this guy. And you can't forget, guys like John Dorsey. there's a lot of people behind there.
Yeah.
Got to find the most talented player on the board that you want to add to your team. What do we need? Who fits? Who's there?
Does it remind you of all? And this just popped in my head because I read the Athletic article about Pavel Datsyuk. But does it remind you at all of when the Red Wings were retooling and integrating the old and the young, and they got Zetterberg and Datsyuk late. I think Datsyuk might have been a 4th rounder. Where it's just you're digging deep for guys that you think are really good players that nobody else knows about, which is a fascinating article, by the way, in the Athletic about Pavel Datsyuk. I think they're doing the 99 best players of the 90s or something like that. And obviously, we know who the number 1 is. That's why you're not doing 1 through 100. And then his number is also 99, so that's why you're doing the 99. But there's a great article about Pavel Datsyuk in that, and just how the Red Wings discovered him, how Ken Holland, how they found him and said, this guy's perfect for what we want to do.
Yeah, you absolutely. It's something I talk about a lot here on this program is, when you draft Aiden Hutchinson, you draft in the 1st round, especially in the NFL. But if you're drafting in the lottery in the NBA, those guys got to come in and be immediate impact players. That's why you're drafting them where they are at. But you look at the Legion of Boom. I always use this as a reference because Earl Thomas was a 1st rounder. He was 14th overall in the 2010 draft. But then you had Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman was taken in the 5th round in 2011. He was the 24th corner chosen. Cam Chancellor was picked in the 5th round in 2010. And Byron Maxwell, who was doing a pretty good job replacing, at the time, it was Brandon Browner. He wasn't even drafted. Your 1st rounders have to perform like 1st rounders, but the bulk of your roster is built in rounds, 3 through undrafted in the NFL. If you're not hitting on those picks, you're in trouble because you're never going to be able to put the team you want together through free agency. You can add a couple pieces here or there, maybe on their 2nd contract, but you can't build a team through free agency.
What's the percentage of evaluation versus culture, or what's the percentage of both, or is it more one than the other? Because you look at a team like Green Bay for the longest time, it was a crazy stat. Like 90% of those guys were homegrown who played for the Green Bay Packers as recently as like 10 years ago, right? So it's like, what percent is that is culture, and what percent is that talent evaluation again and again and finding these guys?
Got to have it. You got to have both. It's the only way that you could really be successful. It truly is. And if you don't have it, if you don't have the culture, you might find yourself taking a really good athlete but a really bad attitude. And you can be as athletic as you want, but if you don't have the attitude, then you're in big trouble.
Yeah. Now, and then again, like if you have that great culture of homegrown guys that you've instilled in them, maybe that bad attitude or questionable attitude, straightens up because he's in the locker room of guys who know what the coaches want. And this really has turned into, we're supposed to be celebrating Lions, but it's turned into a whole philosophical coaching discussion. But I really like it. I think it's very fascinating to see this case study of the Detroit Lions right now, and even the Pistons, if you look at it as well, because they're drafting young talent and they're getting the guys where they want to be and how they want to play. And now at least the Lions are showing success on the field. When you did all your in August, Slow Talk Radio month, when you're doing all your who's closer, I don't think anybody said the Lions. I mean, we're talking Red Wings, Pistons, and maybe even Tigers before. I think the Lions were fourth on a lot of people's minds when it said who's closer to competing, and the Lions are by far the closest right now. And I'm not just saying because they're in season, but I'm saying it because they are.
Yeah, no, they're in the hunt. They are by far the closest. And as Tom Izzo would always say, his player coach teams are his best teams because there's accountability, and you got to answer to your brothers first before you even get to the coaching staff. And when you have that sort of peer development within your program, that hey, this is unacceptable to this junior or senior. This is unacceptable to this veteran. I can't do that. They're going to get after me before you even hit the coaching staff. That's a pretty good sign that you're in pretty good shape.
And I think I've even said on this show before, but that was exactly what we had when we won the MAC tournament and beat Virginia in the NCAA tournament. Our players were in the bubble doing the scouting report, and we didn't even ask them to, but they're saying, no, here's what I need. I need you in this gap because I'm going to be pressuring this ball because this is what they like to run. And coaches, I don't like that matchup. Here's the matchup that I was thinking because here's why. And it's like, you know what? At that point, they could have been right or wrong, but they believed in what they were seeing and what they were doing, and that is what led to a hot team in March is what we had. And I agree with that 100%. I've seen it.
It's a beautiful thing. He's the Coach Kyle Barlow. He's got a beautiful little boy at home, too. Oh, all right, hey, man, Merry Christmas to you and the wife. Thank you so much, as always, for your time, and we'll chat next week, my man.
See ya.
There he goes, out like a thief in the night.